Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game, Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a core mechanic of D&D itself. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the race known as the Half-Orc. Now, the half-orcs are a misunderstood race, mostly because orcs tend to be a little more brutish and often seen as chaotic or evil in the D&D world. And for a person, a human, to have a child with an orc has often been a bit of a bad stigma. But in 5th edition, they are one of the main races, and although there is still a little bit of that inherent stigma that's built into the D&D world, they are widely accepted as a valid race to play for pretty much anyone. But mechanically, they're quite interesting. Let's have a look. Now, as with any other race, they get their ability score increases. Half-orcs get a +2 to their strength and a +1 to their constitution, lining them up really well as fighters, paladins, anyone who would use strength as their main stat. I give the +2 to strength an 8 out of 10 because it is a specific skill that comes down to pretty much just fighting. And the +1 to con I give a 7 out of 10 because even though it's just a +1, everybody wants constitution. Their size is medium, nothing to complain about there, 10 out of 10. Their speed is 30 feet, very standard, that's a 9 out of 10. And they have the ever-important dark vision. 60 feet they can see in dim light or darkness, and everyone who doesn't have it wants it. 10 out of 10 for dark vision. Then they have the menacing feature. This simply gives them proficiency in the intimidation skill. Intimidation's good. It's a nice skill to have, especially if you want to be a charisma build. But I've also heard of people who have homebrewed to let strength be the determining factor in intimidation. Obviously, you need to discuss this with your DM, but intimidation is still a decent skill to have. I give this an 8 out of 10, since it's a free proficiency. Then there's the Relentless endurance power. Once per long rest, when you're knocked down to 0 HP, you just don't. You just drop to 1 HP instead. This is a free life, kind of. Even though you only have 1 HP, the difference between 10 HP and 1 HP is nothing. The difference between full health and 1 HP is nothing. You have the ability to stand and fight. Down a healing potion, run for the healer, attack, try to save yourself. There's a lot of options, even when you're just at 1. And having a free hit after you get knocked unconscious is a good thing. This is a 10 out of 10 ability. They also get the Savage Attack feature. Whenever they use a melee attack and score a critical hit, normally the rules as written of D&D says that when you score a critical hit, you double your damage dice. So if you're using a standard longsword, instead of rolling 1d8 plus your strength mod, you'd roll 2d8 plus your strength mod. That's standard for everybody. But half-orcs have Savage Attack. This means that whenever they do crit, they will roll 2 extra damage dice. So I suppose in a situation where they're using a weapon that has 2 dice as standard, say a greatsword with its 2d6, then they would roll 4d6 on a crit and then 5d6 on a Savage Attack crit. So, but it works out that extra damage is good, and although critting is not something you should lean into, just being able to crit that little bit harder is a great thing. So 9 out of 10. And then finally, their languages. They speak Common and they speak Orcish. 2 languages, giving them the versatility they need, 9 out of 10. And overall, the Half-Orc is 9 out of 10. They're strong, they have crazy endurance, that natural intimidation, and they really shine as fighters, but honestly, that relentless endurance can work for almost anyone. I admit that Savage Attack and Menacing leans a little bit more into the fighter thing, but the fact that when you get knocked unconscious, you can just get back up once per long rest is great. And I think that using a half-orc as someone who could play a strength-based role in a non-normal strength-based role. Say a cleric who wants to be a melee combatant, or a rogue who wants to focus on melee that isn't dexterity-based. Now, I admit, these are not optimized builds, but I think the Half-Orc deserves a good shot in your game, and a 9 out of 10 is a very, very good score. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes peeled for more race reviews coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.